Welcome to another DVD Blu-ray collection update video. So, since we got a lot to talk about, let's get started. First, we have the Venom. Wait, hold on. We have the Venom movies. Now, the first Venom was okay. I don't think it's one of the best superhero movies, but basically it's more of an anti-hero kind of movie. But basically, Tom Hardy plays a guy who he finds this recipient known as Venom, and essentially they become one. And the whole movie is really just him trying to control the recipient and trying to figure out why the recipient chose him. And there's this guy who wants to utilize Venom's abilities, and there's this guy who is after the recipient. But essentially, I think what we're doing is we're doing like multiple recipients in one. So I think it's more or less him trying to understand what's going on. Decent movie. It's not that great a movie, but it's not terrible. The sequel, whether it be Carnage, on the other hand, look at this. Look at how awesome this artwork is. This box art is dope. Anyway, the sequel was a teeny bit better. The recipient and Eddie Brock are now, they live together. It's kind of like if the Odd Couple was, like, imagine if the Odd Couple involved a reporter and a recipient. That's basically what this movie is. But another recipient named Carnage inherited the body of a notorious serial killer played by Woody Harrelson, and he is now after Venom. Carnage escapes from this maximum security prison, and now the recipient and Eddie Brock have to work together. And I know exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to introduce the other syndicates. But, these movies are okay. They're not the greatest, but they're not bad either. It's a much better anti-hero movie than David Ayer's Suicide Squad, that's for sure. I think both of these are relatively okay. They're relatively okay movies. Hopefully they'll improve now that they're introducing the other syndicates. So, we'll see how it goes. Next up, Avengers Age of Ultron. Okay, I gotta be honest. Well, this is actually kind of a neat steelbook. Ultron's on the back there. You know what? I don't remember this one at all. I just remember Ultron. But it's funny. I was at a hotel and I was watching WandaVision, and they mentioned that Wanda's brother named Pedro, he was killed by Ultron. That's literally the only thing I remember about this movie. It's only the only thing. I don't remember anything else. But again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to collect all the MCU movies and then just watch them in like one long marathon. So, Iron Man 2. We went from phase 2 of the MCU to phase 1. And it was kind of in a weird order. I haven't organized them yet. The only thing I remember about this movie was the introduction of Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson, and Mickey Rourke as this villain with these lightning whips. That's the only thing I remember about this movie. That's like literally the only thing. Oh, and the racetrack scene. That was actually kind of cool. The Suicide Squad, also known as James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. This is actually the Walmart exclusive. It has, I don't know if you can see it. There we go. Yeah, I wanted this one because I really love the artwork on this. It's actually just a slipcover, but yeah, this is a great film. I swear, this is a really good one. The problem I had with the David Ayer Suicide Squad was that it was illogical. The choices that the characters make were outright stupid. All the characters were basically just vague and uninteresting. The tone was inconsistent. This movie has characters you actually get to know outside of just their case files. The tone is consistent, it's funny, it's action-packed, but the choices that the characters make is actually logical. And on top of that, it's just more fun. It's just a much more fun movie than the David Ayer one. And personally, I prefer this one. So I mean, there's no harm in watching the other one, but you're better off if you want like actually good Suicide Squad. Watch this one. The plot of this one's actually way different than the David Ayer one, but I also think that was done because it was just a much better option. So the plot of this one is that they're being recruited for this search and destroy mission. Yeah, they're trying to defeat Starro, Star the Conqueror, and this guy by the name of Waller, I think. There's these interesting characters. There's Sharko, voiced by Sylvester Stallone. Harley Quinn's back, obviously, but there's this guy with these deadly buttons. It's kind of weird, but interesting. John Cena's in here, I think. Yeah, John Cena's in this one as Rick Flag. Yeah, this is just a much more entertaining, fun, action-packed Suicide Squad. And also, I liked the villain in this one a lot better. So do yourself a favor. If you have to watch the David Ayer one, that's fine. But if you want my personal recommendation, watch the James Gunn. 2017's Power Rangers. This is actually the Walmart exclusive. I already did a video on this one, so if you want to check that out, go watch the video. But yeah, I personally prefer this Power Rangers over Mighty Morphin, because Mighty Morphin had so many problems. I know a lot of people love it, but 2017 Power Rangers, it took itself more seriously. The characters had a lot more time to develop. It's not just simply, hey, let's gather up all these random teenagers who go to the same high school and just have them fight a woman who's been stuck in a trash can for 1,000 years. No, they actually take the time to understand that the only way they're going to work together, the only way that they can work as a team, and the only way that they can defeat Rita Repulsa is if they work together. But each one of them, so it's kind of like the superhero equivalent of The Breakfast Club, which is one of my personal favorite films. The biggest problem with this was that they set it up for a sequel, and that never happened. So why that didn't happen, who knows? Who knows why it didn't happen, but seriously, you introduce a very well-known character in the Power Rangers franchise, and you tease him for the sequel, and then you just don't do anything with it. That's just annoying. And speaking of tease sequels, The Amazing Spider-Man. Yes, I have a sequel. This is the first one, but I never owned the first one. Now that these movies are technically, well, no, they're not technically part of the MCU. But ever since the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, is doing this whole multiverse concept, they've kind of acknowledged these movies now. So they've acknowledged the Sam Raimi trilogy and the Andrew Garfield ones. Another retail exclusive. You can tell I'm a big fan of retail exclusives. But yeah, it's got the a bonus disc in here. Yep. The Amazing Spider-Man movies. I've never seen them. And the reason why I haven't seen them is because I didn't own the first one. The Andrew Garfield ones, some call them a mixed bag. Some people say it's good, other people say they're not. That all depends on your point of view, really. The Amazing Spider-Man movies have different villains. So if you recall in the Sam Raimi trilogy, there was the Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Venom, who was kind of a throwaway, and the Sandman. In The Amazing Spider-Man, we have the Lizard, Dr. Connors, yeah. Dr. Connors, he turned himself into the Lizard, and if you saw Spider-Man No Way Home, you've seen him before. If you saw Spider-Man No Way Home, he's there. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, we have Electro, the Green Goblin, and the Rhino, who was just thrown in there at the last minute. He didn't even have a chance to get developed. It was stupid. Anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yep, 1 and 2. Guardians of the Galaxy Phase 2 of the MCU. Volume 2 is part of Phase 3. Okay, so the first one. It's basically just the Avengers, but with different characters. These characters have to work together. They don't like each other. If you've seen the Avengers, you know what I'm talking about. But it's basically that. It's basically just the same concept, the same idea as the first Avengers, just with different characters. Some of the characters here I like. I liked Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon. I liked Star-Lord, Chris Pratt. I liked Dave Bautista. Blanking on his name, I'll think of it later. Everybody seems to love Groot, but the tree, but I'm not really a big fan of him. I don't know why, because Well, he was cool in the beginning. He was cool. But now there's this whole Disney Plus show called I Am Groot, and I'm just thinking, oh my god. No, but first, Guardians of the Galaxy is okay. It's just okay. But the second one was a blast. Love the second one. The second movie was really cool. The only issue I had with this movie was that they overused the CG. In the other movies, there was some practicality. By Phase 3, they just exploited CG. Like, they didn't even... Like, you could just tell that, like, their whole thing is, like, CG. You could just tell. However, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had a much better plot. Kurt Russell is the villain. He was good, but you didn't really know he was a villain until much later. And that one woman with the antenna, I'm not sure what her name is. I always forget her name. I don't even know what her name is. But anyway, what is the green girl's name? I'm blanking on her name now. She's driving me nuts. I don't know what her name is, but she was a good character. She was better this time around. She was also good in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, but I'm blanking on her name now. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is my preferred Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I think it just has a much better plot. I think it's interesting to find out Star Wars backstory. Peter Quill, that's his real name. Backstory. I think it's kind of interesting to find out his backstory, but other than it's just a much better movie all around than the first one. But the first two movies are fine. And what's actually interesting is that you can watch these movies out of the context of the MCU and still understand what's going on. They don't take place in a particular time. They don't take place in a particular timeline of the MCU. So really, you can watch them in any period and in any of the phases, and you can kind of understand what's happening. As long as you watch it toward the end of Phase 3, when we get into, but once you get into Thanos, that's as long as just make sure you watch these before you get to the later movies when we get into Thanos. The Invisible Man. You know what's funny? I actually have not seen the original Universal Horror Classic. I know that's a shocker. I also haven't seen The Wolfman either, which is funny. This movie is a different version of the H.G. Wells story about a man who can turn himself invisible. But this is basically an entirely different movie. It's an entirely different story from the original. So the plot of this movie involves Elizabeth Moss as a woman who finds out that her boyfriend committed suicide, but not before leaving behind a lake house. And what she begins to suspect is that there's this invisible force that is not only following her, but is also watching over her like every second. And everybody thinks that she's crazy, typical horror trope, but she begins to suspect that it's her dead boyfriend. The whole movie kind of works in this nightmarish tone in a way, but it's not so much a movie where you have a character who thinks that she's going crazy, but she's not crazy. She's trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to figure out what is going on. Why the hell is this guy following me? It reminds me a lot of Unsane, in a way. Have you ever heard of that movie? It's basically it's a movie about a woman who gets thrown into a mental institution, but she believes that somebody is following her. And you, the audience, don't know whether or not she's telling the truth or she's paranoid. And that's kind of the thing here. It deals with paranoia, but also deals with a scientific experiment that actually worked, but is used. And so it's basically the H.G. Wells story in reverse, in a way. It's hard to explain.